Servus from Austria. We are here at the Red Bull Racing Ring, and well, we're very excited to be here at the Red Bull Ring because in Spielberg we're always excited to be here, but the weather is really terrible. It is raining, and that of course means it's going to be very challenging for the drivers. The racetrack is challenging as it is, so let's see what the qualifying brings with this terrible weather.
Thank you, Verena. Good morning, then. She's absolutely right. The weather is not particularly lovely. It was a good day yesterday. There's been plenty of rain today as we see Marco Wittmann then being strapped into his car ready for this short, sharp qualifying session, as always. We are here at the Red Bull Ring, 4.318 kilometres, 10 turns, 3 of them left, 4 of them right-handers. Always a challenging circuit and made ever more so by these wet conditions. Lucas Au then, local driver of course, the Austrian Lucas Au, and he is running P7 in the DTM Championship at the moment. As you can see, 4 DTM podiums in 2018. Lucas Au has had, regrettably, the win has not come his way. And there is René Rast, who's doing the chasing in the driver's points at the moment. He's P3 in the driver's points and scored every point possible at the Nürburgring. Some 56 points he took and banked with pole positions and the wins. Did a very good job indeed. So to BMW now, and Augusto Farfus. 100 DTM races for the Brazilian driver. Driver, of course, of car number 15, whose best finish this season has been a P2, took that at Brands Hatch in the UK. And the best rookie is Philipp Eng with 92 points, which is 9th place in the Drivers' Championship. But he is the best rookie driver, ready to leave the garage then for this qualifying session. Points, of course, up for grabs during qualifying. 3 points for pole position, 2 points for P2, and 1 point for P3 in qualifying. And those points could prove to be crucial as we reach very much the sharp end of the championship with the 2 races here, and then 2 races at Hockenheim at the season finale to come. So, FP2 then, it was Marco Wittmann with a 1:35.072 who was fastest. Robin Freins was P2, Timo Glock was P3, then it was René Rast, then it was Mike Rockenfeller, before we find Gary Paffett, the man that leads the Drivers' Championship, who was perhaps not as quick in FP as we expected, but can't read too much into FP2 as we've said before. Sébastien Ogier, of course, he's a guest driver for Mercedes-Benz this weekend, making his DTM race debut, and you can see him there in the chart with regards to FP2. Be interesting to see what he can do in qualifying. So a great shot of the paddock area here at the Red Bull Ring as we look at Timo Glock then, who was 3rd fastest in FP2. He's P6 in the Drivers' Championship. At one point in the season, he was a potential candidate for the Drivers' Championship, but mid-season has really gone away from him. So Timo Glock then, and this is Mike Rockenfeller. Car number 99 then. Mike Rockenfeller was P5 in the FP2 session earlier on today. The wet weather Hankooks go on. And the drivers will be just about ready to leave the garages and get this FP session underway. There is Pascal Wehrlein, former DTM champion, of course. And from our commentary position, we can see Mike Rockenfeller leaving the garage now, and he's going to be right at the head of the queue at the end of the pit lane come the start of qualifying in about a minute's time or so. So really steep uphill once you leave the pit lane and you join at the exit of turn number 1. Turn number 2 is Butter King on the uphill section running towards turn number 3, which is the Remus turn. Then the track snakes to the right-hand side and you begin dropping downhill once again before the Rauch turn, which is turn number 4, then sweeps around into turn number 5. The Pirelli turn is turn 6, then 7, 8, and then the final 2 turns, Rindt and the Red Bull Mobile. So there is Gary Paffett then, the Mercedes driver that leads the driver standings at the moment. It's 206 points to Gary Paffett, just 2 points ahead of Paul de Resta. And there is Jamie Green, another British driver, car number 53. He's had a bit of a torrid time of it this season, has Jamie Green. Best finish being a P6 at the Lausitz Ring. Only the 2nd event of the season, hasn't really eclipsed that position since then. As I said then, Mike Rockenfeller right at the front of the queue as the green light goes on and the qualifying session gets underway. see Mike Rockenfeller really giving the accelerator pedal plenty. Seems very narrow between the two Armco barriers then as you make your way now on the exit of turn number 1 out of the pit lane and begin this long stretch up. Now just beyond the Hankook barrier you can see the kink, which is turn number 2, left-hand kink, as Gary Paffett is about to be released from his garage. You can see that he is out and on his way now. The 20 minutes have begun counting down. It goes oh so quickly. Joel Eriksson then in car number 47, a race winner in the DTM in his maiden year in the DTM. And there is Loic Duval and Augusto Farfus and Timo Glock all champing at the bit to get out of the pit lane to get this qualifying session underway. Paul di Resta and René Rast, as you can see, remain in the garages for the moment, but they will be out very soon. So drivers being held to make sure there's no unsafe releases into the path of any other cars making their way down the pit lane. And this, the number 17 car of our guest driver this weekend then, Sébastien Ogier, about to be released from the garage. I can see René Rast there. You can see through the windscreen of Sébastien Ogier's car. And now you can see it full screen as René Rast is on his way down the pit lane. So too, the number 3 car of Paul di Resta. So too, Bruno Spengler, Danny Juncadella, Lucas out, then Edo Mortara. And now, here he comes then for the first qualifying session in DTM, Sébastien Ogier, making his way out onto the fast lane of the pits, then we'll go uphill and make his way onto the track. The livery celebrating 30 years of Mercedes-Benz in DTM, especially designed for this guest appearance from Sébastien Ogier. And you can see just how the rain is continuing to fall here at the Red Bull Ring as Mike Rockenfeller crosses the timing line and kicks up so much spray. You can see how much standing water there is there that's being added to by the... it's not absolutely pouring down, but it's not far short, truthfully. So Mike Rockenfeller gingerly through turn number 1, then heads up towards the Remus turn. But first of all, the kink, the left-hander, which is turn number 2, which he goes through just about now and heads up to turn number 3. This right-hander where you continue to climb uphill and then almost double back upon yourself and begin the run downhill from turn 3, which is the Remus turn, down to the Rauch turn, which is turn number 4. We track Mike Rockenfeller all the way around this particularly challenging Red Bull Ring circuit. Going downhill now and into the right-hander. And in replay then, see just how much water is being displaced by the Hankook wet weather tyres then, as Mike holds onto the car. Absolutely rain-drenched track that has greeted us for our qualifying session. On board with Mike Rockenfeller we go now as gingerly holds onto that steering wheel and tries to control the back end of the car from breaking away. Spray continuing. Visibility, you can see from our television cameras, is not brilliant. Well, imagine what it's like if you're following a car, as indeed Daniel Juncadella is doing, following Bruno Spengler there. And just coming through the murk and the mire, we can see the local driver Lucas Auer, who of course we're used to these weather conditions, resident here in Austria. And very nearly already 10 minutes of the qualifying session almost done and dusted. The first benchmark time we have is a 1:44.019 from Mike Rockenfeller. Compare that to the 1:35.072 that was set in FP2 by Marco Wittmann earlier on today, and you can see how the pace has really dropped and the track giving way to these dreadful racing conditions. So Lucas Auer then in the number 22 car crosses sector line number 1, and Timo Glock, who's personal best through sector 1, better than anyone, so better than Mike Rockenfeller through sector 2, and completes the lap with a PB in sector 3, but it's only enough to give him P3 because Nico Müller has now gone quickest of anyone with a 1:43.892. That's more like it. So the time's beginning to come down, as we expect them to over the course of this qualifying session, compromised by the weather conditions. So Nico Müller quickest, then it's Mike Rockenfeller, Timo Glock, Loic Duval, Robin Freins, Philipp Eng, Augusto Farfus, as the session has been red flagged now. So session red flagged. And there you can see the red flag flying. Just looking on the timing screen map to see if anyone is off anywhere or whether there are problems or whether they just consider that the track conditions and visibility is so bad that they have chosen to suspend the session. So you can see the rain. I mean, just not more than a minute ago I said to you it's not absolutely teeming down. Well, it certainly is now, and it's being carried by the wind a little bit as well. So weather conditions really, really challenging, that's for sure. So red flag out, session is brought to a close with Nico Müller at the top with a 1:43.892. Mike Rockenfeller P2, Timo Glock P3. This in replay is Robin Freins then, who under the totting up procedure, whatever Robin Freins delivers in qualifying is going to take a grid drop because of, as I say, totting up of warnings as he was running wide there, and track limits, something that are going to be taken into account very much. And Philip Eng holding on to the BMW, the rookie driver then, right on the curbs on the runoff area, finding the tarmac once again, and Jamie Green, another one of the drivers that finding keeping the car between the white lines made ever more difficult by these weather conditions, and Mike Rockenfeller also. So you can see the blue stripes on the Hankook tyres. The blue stripes always indicating that they are wet weather tyres, and no surprise there. This is Pascal Wehrlein then in car number 94. And behind him the BMW of two-time DTM champion Marco Wittmann. So red flag out, and session has been stopped. We had just under 15 minutes left in the session. We'd got down to 14:57 remaining. And there, an indicative shot of just how torrid the conditions are here at the Red Bull Ring. Lap record, incidentally, held by Matthias Ekstrom. It was set in 2016, a 1:23.442. 1:23.442 from Matthias Ekstrom. The best brand is Audi. They've had 6 wins here. And last year it was an all-Audi affair. Matthias Ekstrom winning race 1 and René Rast winning race 2. So the Gary Paffett car is pushed back into the garage as this session has been stopped, with Marco Wittmann and Jamie Green in the pit lane. As you can see, Jamie Green's car about to be pushed back, and we go on board with Marco Wittmann, now the BMW driver, and negotiates the pit lane, and then the car put it back into the garage. So as we close the session, it was Nico Müller, P1, and they're the flame-spitting Marco Wittmann car. Paul di Resta hadn't actually set as a lap time by the time of the red flag. Of those that were yet to set a time, René Rast, Paul di Resta, Bruno Spengler, Danny Juncadella, Lucas Au, Edo Mortara, and Sébastien Ogier. And here indeed is Lucas Au coming down the pit lane now. There, the René Rast car. René Rast doing the chasing in the championship at the moment. Had a phenomenal record-breaking weekend and went into the history books at Nürburgring last time out for the DTM cars. Of course, taking 2 pole positions and 2 wins. He really did have a supreme weekend. And what can he do here at the Red Bull Ring? Well, successful last year, winning race 2, and was 4th fastest in the FP2 session this morning. There, the driver standings, as you can see, just 2 points in it between Gary Paffett and Paul di Resta, with René Rast doing the chasing, then Edo Mortara, Marco Wittmann and Timo Glock. Interestingly, I think mathematically Gary Paffett could win the Drivers' Championship this weekend, but to do so he would have to take both pole positions, both wins, and Paul di Resta would have to finish with no points. So I think it's a pretty tall order, truthfully, but it is, I think, mathematically possible if my calculations are correct. So safety cars going out to have a look at the track conditions now then. From our commentary box window, I would suggest that the rain has if not completely stopped, it has certainly subsided. Bernd Mailander then is in the car. So Jamie Green is the driver of the number 53 Audi. Let's hear what he's got to say. He's with Verena now.
Yeah, Jamie's sitting in the car, of course. Now, let me just find out, what is it like driving out there that the qualifying for now was interrupted?
Well, the conditions were mega wet, so visibility when you follow a car is pretty bad. And they had some aquaplaning on the straight as well, so even on the straight line the car's sliding. So I can understand why they red flagged the session.
So you think that was it for the qualifying, or we're just waiting for it? I mean, it's not going to dry up in the next minute, is it?
I guess we have to wait. There's still nearly 15 minutes of the session remaining, so I think it will restart. But we need it to stop raining.
Let's hope. Thank you so much, Jamie. Back to you.
Thanks very much. Well, as you can see, he set 2 pole positions here last year, and he says that the conditions were just so atrocious with aquaplaning on the straights, the car sliding around, and that's why the session was brought to a close. And Bernd Mailander is out there on track now, checking out the conditions. As I say, you can see from that shot then, as we look at the grandstands here, that the rain has subsided significantly. But it is still raining, and of course the track conditions are very wet. So, Nico Muller.
So 10:52 is the new.
Okay, so restart is going to be at 10:52. We've had that confirmed.
5 minutes to go.
Hearing that from Gary Paffett's engineering team, but we are going to restart the session at 10:52. And their confirmation of that on screen for you. So obviously the sighting lap done by Bernd Mailander is such that suggesting that we can get going again within the next 5 minutes or so. So we will go back to the qualifying session with the 14 minutes 57 seconds of the qualifying session remaining. Audi Sport Team Phoenix pit wall there then, and team chief Ernst Moser, we could see, possibly talking to Mike Rockenfeller, who we were looking at that time. So some work going on there on the front of the Mercedes-Benz, as you can see, just to seal the front end of the car from the ingress of water, presumably. So painful time for the drivers, having to just sit and wait then ahead of the qualifying session getting back underway in 4 minutes' time. A good number of spectators here to enjoy the qualifying and, of course, the race to come from DTM. 55 minutes plus 1 lap will be the race duration when the race eventually gets underway, but that's a while away from now. And before that, we've got to set the grid for the race, and that's what's done via this qualifying session, which has been suspended by the weather conditions. The session was red flagged, and here you can see just how challenging the conditions were out there for the drivers. The rain that was being channeled through those Hankook wet weather tyres and then sprayed outside the car. Of course, it's the job of the wet weather tyres to dissipate the rain and the water, and the tyres doing a very good job indeed, but the conditions such that so much standing water around, and as we heard from Jamie Green just a few moments ago, it was not only the car aquaplaning and sliding, it was the fact that the visibility was reduced to virtually zero. And we can see from the Philip Eng car, then car number 25, and also the René Rast Audi, as it spits its flames from the exhaust, all the rain being channeled out from the underside of the car. And that's, of course, what creates all the spray that greets the driver that's following a car ahead. So as we stop then, the best of the Mercedes-Benz drivers was Gary Paffett with 10th fastest. In FP2 earlier, he was the 6th fastest driver. BMW Team RMG, the team chief is Stefan Reinhold, and 185 points in the drivers' team standings at the moment, or in the brand team standings, if you like, and it's extraordinarily scenic around the area, and Red Bull Ring really is a tremendous circuit, a tremendous facility. If you've never been here, I would urge you to come and take a look at the place, because it is a remarkable track, and Actually, it has a certain appeal, even when the weather conditions are less than perfect. And a man that knows all about the area is Lucas Auer, of course, Austrian driver, driving for the HWA Mercedes team chief Uli Fritz. And there you can see with no raindrops coming down now, and umbrellas slowly being put away, the weather conditions have improved. So very good call from Mailander then, who was out in the safety car to do a sighting lap when the session was stopped. So we're about a minute away from the session resuming then, and Gary Paffett is right at the head of the queue, being very much aware of the fact that if you can be out and be unhindered by spray from cars ahead, that's going to be definitely advantageous, I would suggest. So good ploy there by Gary Paffett to be right at the head of the queue. Paul di Resta's car is still in the garage, as you can see. Car number 3, he's currently P2 in the drivers' points, just a couple of points behind the drivers' championship leader, Gary Paffett.
Right, but I think it's easy to get him in.
So Jamie Green then.
Well, the temperature should be the same.
Having a discussion about temperatures. And the Lucas Auer car number 22. As I mentioned, he's had a P2 this year, but that's the best he's done. He's been winless so far in this DTM season. So stand by, 10 seconds away from the light going green at the end of the pit lane, and Gary Paffett and Rennie Rast are going to be the first 2 cars out there on the track, and the light should turn from red to green now. Well, it was a couple of seconds late, we'll give them that. So Gary Paffett then feathers the throttle on his way up the pit lane then. As I say, from this angle inside the car, it looks so very narrow. And the clock immediately begins counting down again, so we have 14 minutes and 40 seconds of this session remaining. So he makes his way up towards the Remus turn now, which is turn number 2. We go through this left-hand kink, which is turn number 1. Sorry, turn number 2, and this is turn number 3, the Remus turn then, the right-hander. You continue going uphill. Again, Gary feathering the throttle now, and just over the crest here, you begin running downhill towards the Roush turn, which is turn number 4 on this 4.3 kilometer Red Bull Ring circuit. Hard on the brakes before the Ralph right-hander then. Turns the car in, back on the throttle again. And turn number 5 sweeps round to the right-hand side before you approach the left-hander, which is turn number 6. Oh, the back end of the car just stepping out, but Gary controls it beautifully and runs out onto the curbs before turn number 7. Another one of these left-handers before a slight right-hander, which is turn number 8, which we approach right now and go through. Long blast of throttle now as we go underneath the bridge and head towards the Rindt turn, which is turn number 9. So pit in on the right-hand side before downhill, and the Red Bull Mobile turn, which is the final turn, and we head for the start-finish line, and we'll put the clock on Gary Paffett now. He's completed his outlap and is settled and ready to go in this qualifying session. So on board with Gary Paffett as he approaches turn number 1. Again, you're climbing uphill through turn number 1, and then the big long climb between turn 1 to turn 3, because you encompass turn number 2 in the middle of it. The car right behind Gary Paffett is Nico Muller, who, when the session was stopped, was the fastest driver with a 1:43.892. 1:43.892 was the fastest. Here's Loic Duval through turn number 1. Just 12 minutes and 30 seconds or thereabouts of the session remaining. So on board with Philipp Eng, the best of the rookie drivers in terms of points haul. Paffett has done a personal best through Sector 1, better than anyone through Sector 1 as the sector light turns pink. So Paffett quicker than anyone. Of course, he's got the advantage of being first out on the track, which means his visibility shouldn't be compromised, of course, until he picks up on back-marking cars that have made their way onto the track after him. So Gary Paffett, the Mercedes driver, that leads the Drivers' Championship then, and he's gone quicker than anyone through Sector 2, but now you can see he's got traffic ahead of him, including Sébastien Ogier in the final sector. Is that going to compromise Gary's efforts here? There's Mike Rockenfeller. Paffett gets past Sebastian Ogier with no problems at all. So this could be a new provisional P1 time from Gary Paffett. Then has one more turn to do. Mike Rockenfeller is sufficiently up the road where he's not going to cause Paffett a problem then. And Gary Paffett then heads to complete the lap. Makes final adjustments on the steering wheel, and sure enough, a 1:39.885. Look at that. It's a full 4 seconds quicker than Nico Muller's previous time. So Paffett now gets pushed down to P2 by René Rast, who goes some 5/10ths quicker with a 1:39.310. René Rast then with a 1:39.310. We're on board with Marco Wittmann, who is quicker than anyone through Sector 1. Holds onto the car, trying to control it. Philipp Eng has gone second fastest now with a 1:39.582, pushing Gary Paffett down to P3. Someone's off in turn 6 because we've got a yellow flag through that sector. So whether someone's off or whether someone just ran wide was the answer to that, because we have a green flag now as Timo Glock goes quickest with a 1:39.204 for the BMW driver. He is the fastest driver. The track really becoming much better and really coming to the drivers now as Marco Wittmann crosses the timing line, and he goes from P13 to P2 now. René Rast with another PB through Sector 1. Robin Freins also got PBs through Sector 1 and Sector 2. Here is Robin Freins. We have another yellow flag in turn number 6. Robin Freins now goes quickest with a 1:38.967, so the time's tumbling down then. On board with Mike Rockenfeller, then holds on to the back of the car, controls it beautifully with just a smidgen of opposite lock to control the sliding back end. Mike Rockenfeller is currently down there P15, but now he goes from P15 to P1 with a 1:38.841. On board with René Rast now, who's dropped down to P6, and now he goes fastest with a 1:38.184, having taken some 6/10ths very nearly out of Mike Rockenfeller's previous best time. So René Rast running very wide there, but his job was done in the previous lap, setting a 1:38.184. Philipp Eng then was quicker than anyone through Sector 1. Sector 2 was not quite so brilliant. Nico Muller is under investigation for a potential unsafe rejoin on the track. So Timo Glock, who was top of the table just a short while ago, now goes back to P2 from P6, a 1:38.305. So the fastest time is a 1:38.184 thus far. Here comes Augusto Farfus. He's done personal best through every sector and now goes fourth fastest with a 1:38.789. So on board with Paffett, P1 for a while earlier on, but now dropped down to P7. But he's done personal bests through Sector 1 and Sector 2, but he's compromised by traffic potentially. I think it was Edo Mortara that got right out of his way. Next in the target sights of Gary Paffett is the Mike Rockenfeller car. Suspect with just 2 turns to do, Rocky is not going to compromise this lap necessarily. So here comes Paffett now to cross the timing line from P10 to P4. Well, inevitably you can see the white square bar for the final sector. So the Edo Mortara and Mike Rockenfeller car potentially did compromise Gary's final sector. No question of blocking, but certainly just upset the rhythm for the final part of the lap. So the order remains Rast, Glock, then it's Danny Juncadea, who's now third fastest, then it's Gary Paffett. Well, actually now that changes because Loic Duval sets the fastest time, a 1:38.162, and now Philipp Eng gives us our first sub 1:38 time with a 1:37.954. 1:37.954 from Philipp Eng, and now it's Timo Glock who takes 7/10ths out of Philipp Eng's time with a 1:37.216. So Timo Glock on an absolute charge. Paul di Resta is one to keep an eye on, so too is Marco Wittmann. Augusto Farfus now, third fastest. Wittmann goes to second fastest. What can Paul di Resta do? As you can see, better than anyone through Sector 1. Personal best through Sector 2 is about to close the lap now. Paul di Resta goes from P12 to P2 with a 1:37.334. just a tenth behind the Timo Glock time, which is currently the fastest, a 1:37.215. What do we got left? 6 3/4 minutes. Here comes Lucas Auer, who at the moment is 17th fastest, but he goes from 17th fastest to 5th fastest with a run of 3 greens in the sectors. So personal bests in every sector. And Lucas Auer now finds himself P6. Mike Rockenfeller now goes to the top of the chart with the first 1:36 time, a 1:36.772 for Mike Rockenfeller. So that's a significant margin over Timo Glock's previous 1:37.216. Paul di Resta now on a charge, as you can see, quicker than anyone through Sector 1. If he can maintain that pace through Sector 2 and Sector 3, he could find himself moving further up the order from his P4, which he is currently. So, Mike Rockenfeller, 1:36.772. So, Paul di Resta breaks, then turns in, and it's a personal best through Sector 2. So, the remaining sector for Paul di Resta then, as the clock continues to count down, and we're into the final 5 3/4 minutes of this qualifying session. Pascal Wehrlein's done personal bests in Sector 1 and Sector 2. And here comes Paul di Resta now sliding the car across the rumble strips and heading towards the timing line. Paul di Resta P4 then. And Paul di Resta heads to break the beam now and goes fastest with a 1:36.384. So great lap there from Paul di Resta, P2 in the Drivers' Championship at the moment. The 3 points he would get for pole position would be very gratefully received with regards to his points haul. Where is Paffett at the moment? P12. But still 5 minutes of the session remaining. Here comes Mike Rockenfeller. Well, he was quicker than anyone in Sector 2 and Sector 3, but Sector 1 did not go brilliantly for him. Here's Gary Paffett running out onto the gravel, just carrying too much speed, and despite turning in, the car did not respond in still what are challenging conditions out there. René Rast then, well, PB through Sector 1. Sector 2 wasn't so good for René Rast. He is currently 12th fastest and stays 12th fastest as Timo Glock is on a bit of a hot one here. Then personal best through Sector 1, quicker than anyone through Sector 2 for the BMW driver. So he's currently 3rd fastest overall. Is this going to be a time to beat that of Paul di Resta, as Timo Glock has one turn to do before the timing beam will be broken by the all-yellow BMW. Timo Glock then heading towards the beam now, and he does not quite get to the Paul di Resta time. As you can see, he's 2/100ths down on that, but he does improve to P2. Interestingly, Paul di Resta, a cancellation of lap time. So Paul di Resta, because he didn't keep the car within the track limits, finds himself dumped now to P8. So Timo Glock now goes fastest. Paul di Resta now goes 2nd fastest, because the lap that he put in on that lap was within the white lines. But Daniel Juncadella beats everyone now by going with a 1:36.073. Are we going to see a time into the 1:35s before the 3.5 minutes of this session are over? On board with Gary Paffett, who's done personal best through Sector 1, Sector 2, and now Sector 3. So he moves up 8 places to P8. So still pace to find for Gary Paffett before the end of this session, and we are running out of time because there are only 3 minutes remaining. The Spanish driver Daniel Juncadella, who is a race winner in DTM, has gone to the top of the chart with a 1:36.071. In fact, the first 7 drivers are all in the 36s now. Timo Glock is currently 2nd fastest with a 1:36.403. But as you can see from the light indications on the Timo Glock graphics, he's done a personal best through Sector 1. He's quicker than anyone through Sector 2. If he can nail everything through Sector 3, and he's heading towards the timing line now, and he doesn't improve in the final sector, so he stays P2. This is Marco Wittmann, who's currently 8th fastest. PB's in Sector 1 and Sector 2. So Marco Wittmann now goes up 3 places from P8 to P5. Paul di Resta has not improved, but can certainly do probably 2 more laps. Because at the moment the laps are coming in at 1:35s, and there's Edo Mortara and Gary Paffett, and Gary Paffett will feel that that's when he, in replay, well, that was a separate incident because he's gone an awful lot wider than we saw previously as he's pushing so hard. Rennie Rast on board with now. Sector 1 was a personal best. Sector 2 was no improvement on what he'd done previously. So it's going to be a big ask for Rennie Rast to improve his P9 position potentially in this lap. But he will have one more. So Rennie Rast crosses the timing line now. He does improve 4 places, goes up to P5, and he has this one lap now, which will count. So he will be able to complete this lap, but when he crosses the line, the session will be over, so there will be no more laps for Rennie Rast. Has he got clear air ahead of him? What has he got? Robin Fryns making his way through turn 2 at the moment. While Rennie Rast has had his last lap time taken away. So actually he's not going to be P5. That's going to drop him back to P9. So this lap really needs to count for Rennie Rast. Paul di Resta is not looking brilliant in this particular lap. Of course, he's done a fantastic job in qualifying to put the car on the second row of the grid. It's P4 at the moment. He will get another lap, though, because he's going to cross the line well ahead of the checkered flag coming out. So it's this lap now for Paul di Resta that is really going to count if he's looking for an improvement on his P4 time, which of course he is, 1:36.487. So what can Paul di Resta do in this lap? It is this one lap, because we have merely 12 seconds of the session remaining. Philipp Eng, no further action for him with regards to leaving the track and gaining an advantage. Philipp Eng is down there P14. So the top 8 cars are all in the 36s, and then the rest of the cars, with the exception of Sébastien Ogier, our guest driver this weekend, are in the 37s. Sébastien Ogier just into the 38s. So Paul di Resta then, it's his last shot then to improve on his P4 time. At the moment, it's a second row start for Paul di Resta. It's at the moment pole position for Daniel Juncadella. Philipp Eng then coming into the pit lane. His qualifying done and dusted, not going to improve on his P14. Loic Duval crosses the timing line, P11. Here comes Jamie Green, the British driver then. He was P15 and stays there. And no one is colouring up the boxes on the sector times, as you can see. So actually, unless there's something extraordinary in sectors 2 and sector 3, the order is going to be Daniel Juncadella, Timo Glock, and Mike Rockenfeller. So all 3 brands in the top 3 places in qualifying then. Daniel Juncadella, Timo Glock, and Mike Rockenfeller. So the reason the lap times are now going away is because the rain begins to fall even heavier. So the Timo Glock car, here comes our pole sitter then, Daniel Juncadella. In car number 23. I mentioned earlier in the program, Daniel Juncadella, of course, a race winner at Brands Hatch in the UK earlier on this season, taking his maiden DTM win, and has put himself on pole position for race number 1 here at the Red Bull Ring as we get confirmation of the qualifying. Daniel Juncadella P1, Timo Glock P2, then it's Mike Rockenfeller P3. Followed by Paul di Resta, Marco Wittmann, Lucas Hauer, Augusto Farfus, Robin Fryns, Rennie Rast, and Gary Paffett. Crucially there, Paul di Resta going from the second row, Gary Paffett on the 5th row. Those 2 fighting in the Drivers' Championship at the moment. And of course, we then find Loic Duval and Nico Muller, Pascal Wehrlein, Philipp Eng. Then it's Jamie Green, Bruno Spengler, Edo Mortara, Joel Eriksson, and Sébastien Ogier. Rennie Rast also is 1 place ahead of Gary Paffett on the grid for this afternoon's race as well. So Rocky then makes his way out of his Audi, having given us a P3 in that qualifying session on 1:36.3, a point for that, 2 points for Timo Glock, and of course 3 points for the man that put it on pole position, Danny Juncadella. And there he is being congratulated. So very good qualifying performance from the Mercedes-Benz driver, Danny Juncadella. Good performance from Timo Glock as well. There is Timo Glock, centre picture now, just moving off to our left-hand side of the screen. there is the driver that has put it on pole position, Danny Juncadella. Good job done from Danny. What a great expression. And Oliver Kaffenstein congratulating him. And Timo Glock there and Mike Rockenfeller, they'll all line up for the photographs, of course. So a very challenging qualifying session, that's for sure. Really weather affected with the rain causing the suspension of the qualifying session at one point. So the top three, Juncadella, Glock and Mike Rockenfeller there. So not long to wait for the race as we get super slow-mos of the top three now. Mike Rockenfeller first of all. So we saw a super slow-mo of Timo Glock and then super slow-mo of the man that is pole position. That goes the way of the Spanish driver, Daniel Juncadella, 1:36.071. What a great job he did in that very, very difficult qualifying session. You can see how happy he is. Let's cross down to the pit lane, and she's getting wet. Verena.
It's been a very wet qualifying, so let's hope that till the race it dries up a little bit. Let's hope for that. But anyway, it was an exciting qualifying, and I'm sure the race is going to be even more exciting. So don't miss it. Here are the highlights of the qualifying, and see you later. Bye-bye.
Du hast besser Erinnerungen